Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. It's Aurelio here. Welcome to my Restoration Druid guide for Midnight Season 1. Restoration Druids are currently one of the best healers in the game, as we've seen them being very successful in the latest AWC Cup, both in NA and Europe, for the first time in years. The meta is very bursty right now, but Restoration Druids have found a niche with the changes in Midnight, which allows us to be a good healer nonetheless. Our gameplay and talents have changed quite a lot compared to the War Within, so it felt appropriate for me to give you guys an update on what's going on with our class. So let's start by jumping into the strengths of Restoration Druid. So we are the only healer specialization who has access to a stealth mechanic. This is a key strength for two reasons. The first one is it allows us to have the opener first before your opponents. And the second one is that it gives access to drinking in stealth. This is especially useful in BG Blitz, but it's also very useful in Arena PvP when you have the chance to go for it. Restoration Druids are a healing over time based specialization. This is a strength and weakness at the same time. If you can predict whom the enemy team will attack next, you can preventively throw some HOTS on the target, allowing you to be ahead of the damage, like an absorption effect in some way. This also means Restoration Druids have the safest windows to go for drinks, overall, while your team is getting passive healing through HOTS. One other key strength is our shapeshifting abilities, which can also be used while in a lockout or silenced. These abilities basically can make us tankier at will, like for bear form, or it gives us speed through the removal of slows and roots. This is precisely why we are the best healer class to deal with melee teams. The pillar is our friend, and by using shapeshifting right, we are virtually immune to roots and slows. One other key strength of Restoration Druid is having a spammable crowd control effect in the form of Cyclone. One other thing that has been granted to us this expansion is being able to use an instant cast Cyclone in the form of Nature Swiftness, which works on Cyclone, this expansion, through a PvP talent, which is this one, Colon of Honara. This is the way we are going to use Nature Swiftness, this expansion, so the gameplay has changed for us quite a bit. I'll get to that later. You just need to know that the NS clone is a very powerful tool that we need to use to slow the game down mainly, so you will use it mainly on DPS, or to score a kill. You can also use it on a healer out of other crowd control effects, so the other DPS, the other enemy DPS cannot interrupt you. With the introduction of Apex talents, we became way less susceptible to purge effects, despite us losing many HOTS, which helped us against purging, such as Cultivation, Sandward, Wild Synthesis, Overgrowth, the Second Life Bloom, and Ancient of Lore. We can still lose games to purge, but we can't lose by being constantly spam purged anymore. And the main reason for that is the new Life Bloom Apex talents, together with the way our class functions this expansion. We'll get to why later in the appropriate sections of the guide, mainly the talent selection and so on. The main weakness for Restoration Druids this expansion is having a target with no healing over time effects up. It will take any, and I do mean any, Restoration Druid at least 3 globals to do any significant healing on a target with no HOTS present. Proper positioning is essential to mitigate and sometimes avoid this issue entirely. This is the primary reason why Restoration Druid is a hard healer to play. This expansion, we are good at healing one target, but I'm sorry to say we are really bad at healing two targets, once again, with the removal of the second life bloom. And this time around, we are good at healing three targets. And the main reason for that is the new talent selection, which we'll get to that later on. This expansion we've had quite a few changes regarding add-ons, and many issues came up with those changes and with the new restrictions. All things considered, you can now play the game effectively, add-on free, and be 90% optimal, so it was a good change for the community overall. But that said, this requires adaptation from our own point of view, and the way we pick up new add-ons or we drop old add-ons. So we just need to figure stuff out in terms of UI optimization and so on. One particular thing that I want to stress is that customizing your own UI has not gone away with the removal of certain add-ons. If anything, you now have to do a lot more work in terms of where you want to position your frames, where you want to put your arena frames, what type of arena frames you want, and there are a few essentials that you still need to play with if you want to have an optimized user interface for this particular game mode. So let's go over what I use currently. That is currently pretty good. And the first one is definitely the buff reminders functionality. The buff reminders functionality is basically this icon right here. It's a weak aura like functionality that alerts you whenever you are missing certain buffs. Please do keep in mind that this does not work in combat. So this only works whenever you are in shuffle and you're jungling rounds, or in 3v3 in the starting room. So it is not something that plays the game for you. During the game, if you get purged, so if they purge your Mark of the Wild, you still need to look at the target frames to see if the enemy team has purged Mark of the Wild off your teammates. Then you have the interface, the action bar add-on, which is entirely optional. I prefer to use Bartender because it can hide the other keybinds and bars that I do not need to see. So I save up some screen interface time. I mean, so some UI space. But this is entirely optional. It's just my own preference. I am used to play with this. But add-ons that you actually need is better Blitz frames and better Blitz plates. Those two add-ons actually customize the way you see your frames and the way you can apply certain debuffs and buffs on the frames and also your nameplates. So in terms of better Blitz frames, you have a lot of options that you can choose and pick and choose of popular streamers that will straight up give you a quick and easy to set up version of the add-on, but you can also modify this yourself if you want to experiment with different settings and different setups. I would advise you one thing is that you stick with the streamers that are playing that are healers. You don't want to copy the user interface for these two, I mean at least the settings for these two add-ons from streamers that are playing DPS specs. So you just want to stick with the healer streamers. If you want, I can also give you my own version. You just need to ask for it and I can give you it. I can give it to you, it's fine. But there are players here that you can just click within the game the game version. You can just click it here and it will set up the add-on for you. And the same thing should be said for better Blitz plates. In the same way, you can there are a lot of settings here. If you are new to the game, you want to ignore this part and just pick one of these and just plug it in and play. This is very advanced stuff. There are quite a lot of things that you can do with these two add-ons, but unless you know what you're doing, I would advise against trying to tune in these settings, and I would just stick to the version of these two add-ons that you like the best out of those presets that are present on the add-on itself. I'm still using details for damage recount and healing recount of the rated matches. Keep in mind that it's a very bare-bone version of the add-on details that was present in the War Within. Sadly, a lot of this functionality was pulled back. So there are a lot of restrictions present in the game that prevent us from accessing a lot of this information. Was present in the War Within version of the add-on, but this is still better compared to not having it, or compared to the Blizzard alternative. So I will still stick to details. I'm using frame sort, and it does precisely what it says in the tooltip. It places the player frame at the top, middle of or bottom of the party / raid frames. This is key in Arena. You can set it up yourself. I'm used to seeing myself in the party / raid frames here on the top, so it will be this one, this section. So I will always see myself as the top player, and this is especially useful if you are using macros that are centered around you and party 1 and party 2, which we will get to that in the macros section. Mini CC is a new addition to Midnight in terms of add-ons, and it is basically doing some of the old functionality of Omni CDs plus Omni Auras. Now, it's not exactly the same thing, but it does quite a bit. There it is. So this is what the add-on is doing. So it tracks important cooldowns from the enemy, it tracks precognition, it can track kicks in certain situations, it tracks defensives from the enemy team, and it tracks party-wide defensives, some of them, not all of them, but some of them. It also tracks in the raid frame whenever you have a defensive present, when one of your party members or yourself is being interrupted, or when they are popping a major offensive cooldown. So this is one of the most essential add-ons for PvP in Midnight, and it is replacing effectively a lot of the old functionality of Omni CD and Omni Auras. So this is my own S-Arena, this expansion. I had to change up my UI just a bit in order to make room for a more centered placement for focus frames. Because of the way they changed the add-ons utility and functionality, this expansion, you actually need to have a focus frame once again as a healer. One more thing I'm currently using is True VGCD. This only works on player, and I have it right here. This is useful for two reasons. For me, if I'm recording content, you can actually track what global cooldown I'm using. But for you, this is useful if you are recording your own gameplay. This is the best way to improve as a healer. You want to watch back what you're doing in rated games, see your mistakes and try to not do them again. One clear way to help you with this type of review of your own gameplay is through VGCD tracking your own global cooldowns, so you know for certain what you pressed at that particular time. In regards to this section of the guide for macros, not much has changed since the last expansion. For the sake of having everything in one video, I'll just go over it real quickly. So let's start by talking about the most important macro for Restoration Druids in general, or for Druids in general, which is the stop casting plus cancel form macro, all in one. Please have a comfortable bind for this macro, as you'll use it very often in rated PvP. The first part is very straightforward. You can press this keybind to stop your current cast. That's better compared to using movement to stop cast, because your opponent can more easily tell that you're trying to fake cast when you're moving, compared to when you have to stand still and press the keybind. As you can see right here, this is way less noticeable compared to moving, then stop and cast. Because by doing this, the enemy team can actually try to pre-kick the cast, which is an advanced technique, where they see your character standing still for a second, and then they immediately interrupt you before you even start the cast. This is an advanced technique that you will not see very often in rated PvP, but at the same time, overall, for any type of interrupt, so if they try to interrupt you late in the cast, it's still beneficial to use this macro to stop cast compared to just moving to stop cast. And the second part of the macro is a cancel form macro. Those two effects never overlap, because when you try to cast, you go back to human form right away. You just need to be careful not to use this macro when you are in Tree of Life. And this only applies to Cyclone, because you have instant cast regrowths in this form. So it's just when you try to cast a Cyclone in this form, you cannot use this macro because you will go out of Tree of Life. So that said, why does cancel form matter for Restoration Druids? Well, the cancel form matters because with this macro you can perform the Powershifting technique, which is the way Restoration Druids have described this technique for ages. By using the normal shape-shifting abilities, this is what happens. So you're changing forms once a second, or even when you go back to human, it's once a second. So if you read the tooltips of cat form, bear form and every other form, the act of shape-shifting frees you from movement impairing effects, which includes roots and slows. So by being able to bear form and cat form and plus the power shifting technique, you are basically performing this action twice as much compared to the normal shape shifting. I will show you here. So you are actively, by using the macro, shape shifting twice as much, because I'm using the macro in the middle of the global cooldown. So I'm removing slows and roots twice as much. Why does this matter? This matters because a lot of classes, pretty much almost all of them, have built-in slows effects and roots effects. So they slow you down, they can slow you down more than once a second. So by using this macro, you are negating a big part of the slows and prevent them on yourself. This is especially useful if you are close to a pillar, because by being close to a pillar and shape-shifting, you can turn the pillar faster, and when you are behind a pillar, they cannot slow you again until they come in your line of sight. So this is why this technique is particularly useful in rated arena. This is why I say that druids in general are very mobile. With this technique you can kite any melee when you're running around pillars. As I said, the only way you can be locked down is in a stun setup, or if you are out in the open. That's where defensives or cooldown trading comes in. We have the focus frames, which I keybound and put a macro, which is the focus arena 1, 2 and 3. So I'm able to switch my focus frame quite fast. Then I'm using shape-shifting macros, so I can add this line, which is the stop casting line, which allows me to stop the cast with just this macro. So when basically the reason why I do this is because when you are in a rated match and you're trying to fake cast your opponent with a Cyclone, usually what the enemy team can do is react with scrap control on me. So if I see it coming for any reason, I can, with just one single ability, I can press it twice. First to stop the cast, and the second to go in bear form, or in cat form, or in travel form. This way I don't have to press different keybinds at the same time. I can just spam this button to go back in bear form or in travel form, depending on what I'm trying to do. Then I have bash 1, 2, 3 when I'm playing with talent bash, so I don't have to target the enemy, so I can keep healing while also stunning the opponent. And the same philosophy is for Cyclone 1, 2, 3, so I don't have to target my Cyclone target. And the same for dispels, so I'm as fast as I can possibly be with dispels. I don't have to target my team, I just have to press the keybind, the macro, and it will just dispel either myself, party 1 or party 2, while my target is something else. Let's see, I'm using roots 1, 2, 3. So once again, especially when I'm in Tree of Life, I can instant cast root without having to target the enemy that needs to be rooted. It's this macro. It's basically a group of foods and drinks that I used to do in the previous expansions, and I just added them all up. Keep in mind that I'm also putting in this macro mage food whenever I'm playing with a mage. So I have all in one macro, because mage food is faster than normal food for mana drinking purposes. Then I have a macro for healthstone for whenever I play with a warlock. So I'm also using a stop cast line for this. In cases of emergency where I can die if I don't press the healthstone right away, I also added this line, so I immediately get the healthstone effect up. And finally, I'm using a vortex/root macro, so I can also ping to my teammate where is the effect of the root or the vortex effect. The stat prio hasn't really changed this expansion. You want to prioritize mastery in every slot while keeping a balanced distribution of haste and versatility. This season's tier set has a lot of haste, so it is better to go for 2 pieces of gear of the jewelry slot with versatility and mastery, with 1 piece of gear, which is the ring slot, with haste mastery. The jewelry slots are the heaviest ones in terms of secondary stats. The other important thing to mention, after the crafted rings and necklaces, are the offset pieces. This expansion you can craft a helm, bracers, but also boots with engineering, which is huge. This gives us access to a lot of extra mastery from bracers and boots, which I'm currently using. My recommendation for Season 1 for embellishments is to go for Arcano Weave lining. you can apply this to crafted gear from the armor, so anything but jewelry slots. So basically I'm running everything with versatility mastery, with boots and bracers full mastery, and everything else is versatility and mastery. So I keep a balanced stat allocation. Tier set has been controversial for us this season. Many Restoration Druids are running only 2-piece bonus. Personally, I'm running 4-piece for 3 reasons. This meta is so bursty that you're forced to press Wild Growth constantly in your rotation, even though it costs a lot of mana. So having a 5% mana reduction in PvP helps a bit to shave this cost off. But the CDR portion is also impactful. The second reason is that the stats are not that bad. The only part you're missing out, or it's less efficient, is the shoulder slot, in which you are losing 32 critical strike, because crit is something you want to avoid at all costs. But 32 crit strike raiding is basically a jewelry slot, like a gem slot and a half. It's not that big of a deal. You're mostly getting mastery from this slot. And the third reason is that Wild Growth also contributes to a build I've been running, which maximizes the instant cast healing we're doing. And we'll get to that later. So for gems, it's very straightforward. You want to gain the cognitive heliotrope, which gives you 23 intellect, and it gives you the precog effect. Then you want to pick up either the flawless quick amethyst, which gives you mastery and haste, or the flawless versatile amethyst with versatility and mastery. Both are good. For enchants, I decided to go for leech effect, which is the most consistent in terms of value for me, because speed is something that you don't really need a Restoration Druid. You have tools to be very mobile. As I said, Druid is a very mobile healer, and the only time where we can actually suffer is if we are trained down and we are locked down with a stun effect. And the leech effect works with your frenzied regen. It works with your skin, bark skin, because you are picking a particular talent, which is matted 4. And so I decided to go for full leech effects, which is the empowered hex of leeching, the Silver Moon's mending, and the Shaldrasil roots, which gives you stamina and leech. For other enchants, I of course go for the Mark of the Magister, which is intellect and mana percentage, and the same for the legs. And then we have the Weapon Enchant, which is the Acuity of the Rendorai, which is the intellect proc. In terms of rings, we go for Zul'jin's Mastery, to follow the philosophy that I've talked about to you before, which is to maximize mastery in every slot and in every way we can. So for races, if you want to be competitive, you have just 2 choices, which is either Night Elf or High Mountain. Of course, races do not matter that much in Arena, so you can pick any race you want and you will be just fine. The only exception would be if you're trying to go for rank 1. But for anything else, you can literally play any race and you will be completely fine. The reason why those 2 races stand out is because Night Elf has Shadow Meld, which is a cool ability which can be used in many different ways to outplay your opponent. You can Shadow Meld to instantly drop combat and start drinking in stealth. Like this. So you're in combat, you're healing your team. Then you Shadow Meld, drink, stealth with Prowl. You can use Shadow Meld to avoid CC in two ways. If it's casted CC, by using Shadow Meld you effectively stop the cast. So it's Polymorph, Fear, Hex, you name it. You instantly stop the cast of the CC even though you are in global cooldown. If it's instant CC, by timing Shadow Meld right, you can technically immune it. A Trap, a Hodge, a Stormbolt, a Mortal Coil, a Blind, a Kidney Shot, and so on. And finally, with Shadow Meld you can nullify incoming damage from projectile-based spells with proper timing. The most obvious cases are Chaos Bolt in the air, Rapid Fire with double tap aim shot combo, a Glacial Spike, a Star Surge, a Lava Burst, etc. This is obviously very hard to do, but having access to this is a competitive advantage over other races. That's why I'm talking about it. High Mountain, on the other hand, passively reduces all incoming attacks by a flat amount. This is extremely strong into dot-based specialization, such as Assassination Rogues, Ferals, Affliction Warlocks, Shadow Priests, and so on. Bull Rush, which is the active racial ability on High Mountain Torrents, has its uses as well. This is an extra charge effect which you can direct anywhere, and it is especially useful when your wild charge is on cooldown and you're still in trouble. High Mountain, as a side note, has been banned from tournament play, probably because it was too strong in certain scenarios, so the devs prefer to remove the race completely from tournament play, so keep that in mind. I would say that High Mountain Tauren is a solid option for Shuffle, but for BG Blitz, 3v3 Arena, specifically for Restoration Druids, Night Elves are still kings, in my opinion. So it is my recommended race to pick for Restoration Druids. In this section of the guide, I'd like to talk about which class talents to go for, and why, and how it affects our gameplay. I'll skip passive talents that do not impact the gameplay. I'm currently picking Star Surge plus Starlight Conduit. This combo allows me to have Star Surge every 6 seconds. This is important for two reasons. The first one is that it's giving me mana back with Master Shapeshifter. And the second one is that Forest Guardian, through Star Surge, is increasing my healing over time effect healing, Dawn. So casting Star Surge on cooldown is a mana regeneration tool and a healing over time increase. So that's why I pick those two talents. I'm also using Rake Stun and Rake in general, and I'm using Maim Stun. This is effectively a kidney shot effect that you have every 30 seconds. You just need to have enough combo points to use it, but it's an incredibly useful crowd control effect, and you shouldn't ignore it, because it is a powerful tool to score kills or to apply pressure on the enemy team, or to relieve pressure from your team by stunning a DPS from the enemy. Frenzied Regen is a good defensive, which skills of Mastery, Healing, and Verdant Heart further increases the whole healing you are getting while Frenzied Regen and Barkskin are up. This also includes Well-Honed Instincts, which is a talent that gives you Frenzied Regen automatically when you fall below 40% health. This triggers even when you are in crowd control. Keep in mind that Frenzied Regen, once again, scales off your mastery. So if you do not have any healing over time effects up on yourself, well-honed instincts alone will not save you, because the healing will be less than half, basically. Wild Charge is a powerful tool that you've seen me use a lot, especially for clips and other fun videos that I've made in the past. It is a very powerful movement cooldown, which allows you to kite the enemy or jump in the action right away if you want to use your stance in cat form. It is an ability that is in the right hands, gives you an extreme amount of mobility in the right moment. One very key talent selection is Incapacitating Roar versus Mighty Bash. This is entirely based on which type of comp you're running. So if you're playing with a mage or a hunter, you will never play with Incapacitating Roar, and you will always play with Mighty Bash. If your arena team does not have polymorph effect DRs, you can use Incapacitating Roar to help you either successfully land a Cyclone or to stall the enemy from bursting. It's an effective tool as a crowd control to stall the game or to land game-winning Cyclones. Fluid Form is still in the game, even though we lost Skull Bash, which is the interrupt effect. Rest in peace, King. It's still good, so that we immediately jump into cat form, mostly, and we don't lose a global cooldown just to go in cat form. So it's still something that I'm using. Innervate is a powerful cooldown to save your mana. You should use this on cooldown, especially in 3v3 and in BG Blitz, at the start of the game when you are in Tree of Life. Symbiotic Relationship is a decent talent that I'm currently deciding not to run, but if you have a very strong self-healing class, you can actually use this with great success in terms of bonus healing that you're getting, such as a Retribution Paladin or a Enhancement Shaman. I'm currently deciding to play with Circle of Heavens because I'm running with Keeper of the Grove, because it boosts my magical damage that I do with Star Surge, with Starfires and so on. If I was running Wildstalker, I'd probably go for Circle of the Wild, because with Keeper of the Grove I gain extra damage when I have a proc of Blooming Infusion. We'll get to that later. You just need to know that when I have this proc with this effect and with Call of the Elder Wild active, I do the most damage ever for a Restoration Druid. So Heart of the Wild has been reworked this expansion. It now gives you a powerful ability depending on which form you are currently in. And there are two relevant uses for us this expansion. Either Feral Frenzy as a cat form for combo points. So if you press this, you will instantly gain 5 combo points in order to be able to use Maim instantly. Or if you are getting trained and you are out of defensives, you can go in bear form and press it to gain a maximum health bonus, like a last stand effect. Do keep in mind that this effect will last regardless of which form you have. So if you are getting trained, you can press this, you gain the maximum health, and then you go back to human form and you keep healing. And you still have the Heart of the Wild buff for 20 seconds. Most of the time you will use this to gain combo points, to maim stun, but sometimes you have to play so defensive that you are forced to use this for bear form effect. Another important talent is Matted Fur. You are basically gaining an absorb effect on your bark skin, so you can grid your bark skin a little bit more. This expansion we also got a 10% buff on bark skin, so with all talents and buffs you are actually gaining a 40% damage reduction effect in PvP only. So this effect is only active in PvP, the 40% version. For every other piece of content, bark skin is 30% damage reduction. And it's only for Restoration Druids as far as I know. The last thing to note is the Ursol Vortex or Mass Entanglement choice node. I would say that Ursol's Vortex is the safer pick. It gives you a grip effect, which is like a Death Knight grip, and it can be very strong when you predict the enemy from using a teleport or a blink effect. You can negate a blink or teleport completely, and the enemy team will, or the enemy that is trying to escape the vortex, will be pulled right at the center of the vortex, one time only. The last honorable mention is Typhoon. This is something that you can use, and it depends on what the enemy team is doing and what you're trying to do with your comp. Generally speaking, I do not run with this, but against warriors or against enemy casters, this can be used as an interrupt of casts. So depending on the matchup, I will generally use this. So if I were to give you a normal shuffle build, I would say that the only optional talents would be this one and 1 point of this. So you can either pick some speed with feline swiftness, you can pick up Typhoon, you could use the improved stampeding roar, so you keep your team more mobile. You could pick Ursine Vigor to give you more tankiness, especially for Frenzied Regen, because you can go in bear form, press Frenzied Regen, and you gain the full benefit from Ursine Vigor. I would say that the normal shuffle build would look like this. And for 3v3, if you are running with double melee, improved Stampeding Roar gains a lot of value because you are keeping your team mobile. And for any other team comp where you have like one caster and one melee, or double caster, Typhoon gains a lot of value because you are also helping your team kite the enemy team, especially versus other melees as a caster team. The only exception where you don't want to run Typhoon is if you have an elemental shaman on your team, because this will DR with Thunderstorm. Following up on class talents, in this section I will explain the talents that you need to keep in mind when you play Restoration Druids in terms of spec talents. So the first thing to note this expansion is the Power of the Archdruid. Power of the Archdruid is something that was present in the War Within, but it was a way lower choice node. This time around it's right in the center of the spec tree, and it is not a choice node. The effect is very powerful, so we are always picking this. This basically makes your Soul of the Forest a cleave effect. It will spread the effect of Soul of the Forest up to 2 more healing over time effects on other targets. So when you activate Soul of the Forest, increased healing applies to 3 HOTS. This is massive value if you can apply this on 3 people. This also works with thriving vegetation. So the instant heal that you get also can be cleaved. Soul of the Forest by itself is a choice node and a passive talent that you can find higher on the tree. This got nerfed compared to the War Within. Now it only gives a 60% healing buff. And with power of the Archdruid it cleaves to 2 more targets. With my personal build, you will only use Soul of the Forest on rejuvenations. You will never use it on regrowths. I will explain why later. Omen of Clarity is a talent that gives you a clear cast effect whenever your life bloom ticks. This is important when you're trying to win games with mana, because it gives you free regrowth casts on your team. This is paired with the Tranquil Mind to further give you more procs, so you have more regrowths that are free of charge, let's say. Efflorescence this season and this expansion has been made a passive effect with this talent, and it is a must pick in Arena. Efflorescence healing has been increased by 25%, and it now automatically grows beneath your life bloom's target's feet. So you are never pressing Efflorescence, so the mana cost is 0 for having Efflorescence up at all times, which also gives you access back to Verdancy in rated PvP, because with this effect you gain the Efflorescence and you also gain this effect at all times. So you will see Efflorescence back in your healing recount in PvP once again. And it wasn't since Dragonflight Season 2 where we used to play with Efflorescence, so it's a welcome change. Now to the most important question of the spec tree. Am I running Verdant Infusion or Prosperity? Well, the answer is quite complicated this time around. So for Shuffle, regardless of what you're facing, I would say Prosperity is the superior choice. You are gaining many more Soul of the Forest procs, which in turn means more empowered rejuves and more value from thriving vegetation and the apex talents, which we will get to that later. All you need to know is that I'm running with this in all rated PvP content, with the only exception would be high-end 3v3 games that are decided on mana only. So if I know that the enemy team comp will try to win games with mana, then Verdant Infusion is superior, because you don't have to spam as many HOTS as the Prosperity build. You don't have to use Wild Growth nearly as much compared to the Prosperity build, and I will explain why in the healing rotation section. You just need to know that Prosperity is superior in terms of throughput, but Verdant Infusion is better in terms of mana consumption. NS, Nature Swiftness, this season and this expansion will be used for Cyclones only, with PvP talent Call of Honara, and that's why I'm also picking Passing Seasons, so I'm also reducing the cooldown of the ability. You don't want to use it ever on Regrowth, because Regrowth has been heavily nerfed this expansion. The healing is quite negligible. You don't have 2 life blooms, so rampant growth, although you're still playing with it, only works on 2 targets, not 3. So regrowth in general has been hit very hard this season and this expansion. So it's more like a mastery heal, so something you press so that you gain more mastery value. But the bigger part of your healing will come from Swiftmend by itself and the rejuvenations that are empowered through Power of the Archdruid, Soul of the Forest. That will be your healing breakdown. On top of all this, you have the Apex talents. The Apex talents are quite strong for reasons that are not so obvious at a first glance. So the first reason why Apex talents are good. Apex talents are good because Life Bloom is back to stacking, but it's the Wrath of the Lich King type of stacking. What do I mean by this? It means that Life Bloom counts as 3 HOTS present for purge purposes. So if you have only Life Bloom active on a target and is stacked up to 3, it will take 3 globals of purge from the enemy team to remove Life Bloom from a target. This is why I say that Restoration Druids this season are not that bad in terms of purge weakness. They are actually quite good compared to the War Within. Rank 2 is also quite good, which is giving you extra healing on the Phylum Bloom. But the juicy part is rank 3. Life Bloom bursts into Blooming Frenzy when you consume Soul of the Forest, causing it to bloom 3 times in a rapid succession. This means that with Prosperity build, you are basically gaining this effect over and over and over again, especially when you consider Renewing Surge. So the Swiftman cooldown is reduced by 15%, also increased up to 30% on lower health targets. This also stacks with Swiftman here, which also increases healing of Swiftman, and the Keeper of the Grove Scenario Smite, which is further increasing the healing of Swiftman, plus Sylvan Beckoning. I will get to that later on the hero tree. All you need to know is that Swiftman is back with Vengeance this season, and it is one of the stronger cooldowns for burst healing that you have on your arsenal. Keep in mind that rank 3 of Apex Talents works with Efflorescence plus Verdancy. So if you have Efflorescence with Life Bloom up on yourself and you're gaining the Soul of the Forest, you are also triggering the Apex effect, which is the green wave you are seeing on my screen. This is also triggering the Verdancy effect. So this is all a very nice synergy working all together. Grove Guardians have been reworked this season, so now they are a passive effect. Casting Swiftmend or Wild Growth summons a Trent, which casts an ability and it heals quite a bit. This also reduces the cooldown of your big healing throughput cooldown, which is Incarnation Tree of Life. So this is all working nicely on top of Reforestation, which is also, depending on how many Swiftmans you're doing, it is granting you access to Tree of Life more and more. So if you are spamming a lot of cooldowns and a lot of healing, you are gaining a lot of trends. Like way more compared to the War Within. And this is also giving you access to Tree of Life more and more through Reforestation and through Scenarios Guidance. If you have any questions about the spec tree, please do let me know if I'm going too fast. I'm trying to explain everything because the restoration tree is quite complex, as you can see. The only thing left to mention is Call of the Elder Druid. This is activated whenever you use important off-roll abilities, and this is only through Star Surge, Rake, Shred, and Frenzied Regen. Depending on the form you're in, you gain extra effects. So if you are in human form, the cast time of Cyclone and other damaging effects are 15% faster in PvP, and the damage is increased by 20%. In cat form you gain 1 combo point every 2 seconds, and the physical damage is increased. And in bear form you gain extra stamina and you gain an extra frenzied regen effect. This is a very powerful tool, and it is my preferred pick for this row. And I'm also ignoring other important healing talents, because I think that Call of the Elder Druid is that strong. You just need to know that it's there, and you need to be able to use those abilities that are outside of the normal healing rotation, so that you gain access to this effect. The strongest feature is the combo point generation, which gives you easier access to maim stun. But you can also, once you are done with one effect, so you gain the effect, for example in bear, you gain double friends regen, then you go back in cat form and you gain the effect as well. So it's all present as long as Call of the Elder Druid is up. So this is a very powerful tool to use off-roll abilities, and it's up every 1 minute. It's a very strong thing. You just need to be aware of it, because sometimes if you are not thinking about this effect, you may be activating it through Star Surge, but you are effectively wasting the effect, because all you're gaining from Star Surge is the extra damage part. But if you know that you need some tankiness, or you can farm combo points, it's better used if you press Star Surge and then you go cat form and you gain the combo points, so you can maim stun, for example. So there are quite a lot of uses of Call of the Elder Druid that are not trivial to implement in your own gameplay, but it will give you a lot of utility. The last two important talents from the Restoration tree is Master Shapeshifter, which is giving you extra mana from full combo point stuns like maim stun, or finishing moves in cat form, or Star Surging, or using Wrath in tree form, is all giving you mana back. This is especially useful in 3v3, but it's also useful in shuffle, because it is actually giving you a lot of damage, especially when you combine this with Call of the Elder Druid and Heart of the Wild. So this damage is not to be underestimated. As other previous expansions, we have access to Germination, which gives you double rejuvenations on every target. This is very key for this build, because once again I'm trying to maximize the healing over time effects that I gain upon a target with Soul of the Forest and Power of the Archdruid. Please do keep in mind that Power of the Archdruid works exactly like Wild Growth. So if I am too far away from my team, I will only apply Wild Growth on myself. In the same way, if I am too far away from my team, approximately more than 20 yards, I will only get the rejuvenation on myself with Soul of the Forest and Power of the Archdruid. So if you can be closer to your team, you will gain triple the amount of rejuvenations. In the same way, you want to be close to your team when you press Wild Growth, so you're spreading wild growth on the whole team. So the last talent that we are picking up on this tree is Ironbark, which is the external defensive cooldown that we have. This is a very strong effect this season. I will explain to you later in the hero talent tree section. You just need to know that I'm also picking improved Ironbark that further reduces the cooldown of the talent. You just need to keep in mind that this is your main defensive that you apply on your teammates, as Nature Swiftness will be used primarily on Cyclones this season. So if you want a regular shuffle 3v3 and 3v3 build, this is what I would recommend. The only thing that you want to change for 3v3 specifically, if it's a mana game, you want to play with Verdant Infusion over Prosperity. And the other talents are pretty much set in stone. You might say, but Aurelio, why would you want to play with Master Shapeshifter in the shuffle build? Well, that's because it is giving you a lot of damage. So damage in shuffle is not irrelevant, especially in deep dampening. What you can do with this setup is, as I said before, you can do a lot of damage with Call of the Elder Druid up, with Tree of Life up, and with Master Shapeshifter up. So all these talents are giving you extra damage on Wrath, which you can spam in Tree of Life. So even though you don't care about the mana part, mana generation part, you are still getting a lot of damage from this talent, and it's a lot more compared to faster tick rate on dots, because we are going for the caster build version. So magic damage, Star Surge and Starlight Conduit. We are never pressing our combo points on Rip, it's just on Maim stun every once in a while. With Midnight we saw changes to the hero talent tree as well, with the introduction of a fourth column of talents for every spec. For Restoration Druids in particular, the rework shifted considerably the power level in favor of Keeper of the Grove, most notably an increased power of Swiftman healing, combined with a summon that you get from Ironbark, which is a pretty good source of healing when the Ironbark comes up on a teammate, on ourselves. This talent right here, Dryad's Dance, also is very useful whenever we have a Dryad up, which further increases the uptime on our burst healing, which is Swiftman, as I said before. All this does not mean that Wildstalker is completely dead. The removal of Ancient of Lore was a big hit for the hero spec, but HOTS have become fewer in numbers this expansion. So the value of Symbiotic Blooms, which is the key thing from Wildstalker, is a HOT that counts for mastery, and by itself it also increases healing done on targets with Symbiotic Blooms up. Wildstalker will probably go back to being competitive in Season 2 with higher levels of mastery. But for now, just stick to Keeper of the Grove, because it is the superior choice. When we talk about Keeper of the Grove, there are a few talents that you need to keep in mind while you play the game. Trends of the Moon basically means that whenever you summon a Grove Guardians, they will spread the Moonfire around for you, which is good for our own damage. Then, as I said, we have Scenario Smite, which further increases the Swiftman healing, and Power of Natures. Whenever you have Grove Guardians up, your HOTS do more healing. Whenever you get this proc, your next Swiftman will summon a Dryad, which will cast Tranquility and Regrowth on a very small scale. And whenever the Dryads are up, you are also getting cooldown reduction on Swiftman, on top of this other talent, which also summons a Dryad, so this counts for Dryad Dance. So this is what the Dryad is doing, and it's a lot of healing actually, so do not underestimate this thing. One thing to mention is that The Dryad, as every other summon, is weak to being CC'd. So if you are summoning the Dryad with Ironbark, you need to make sure that you're not close to a Priest or other AoE effects such as Blinding Light from Paladin. Any CC on the Dryad will stop the channel. The last thing to note is Controlled Dream, which is our pick from this expansion. Controlled Dream basically reduces the cooldown of certain abilities if they're available for a period of time before you press them. So just to make things simple, whenever the gates open, you will have this effect of NS Incarnation Tree of Life being reduced by 15 seconds, as you can see right here. So instead of 48, instead of 58, it's 43 seconds. And at the same time, since we are using NS on Cyclone, sometimes you are going to keep this effect for a while, so that you wait for your teammates CC and follow them up with Cyclone. Then this talent gets a lot of value, so that you basically have NS Cyclone very often. So that is the main advantage of picking up this hero talent. The last choice node is Grove Inspiration over Potent Enchantments. I would say that because of all things we have said in the guide, that Grove's Inspiration is better because it boosts our healing, it further boosts our healing. Reforestation is sadly a bit behind in terms of what it can do for you in PvP. So we just have to stick with Grove's Inspiration. This season you have very limited choice in terms of PvP talents, as all 3 PvP talents are basically requirements, which is Call of Honara, which is the NS on Cyclone, Early Spring, which gives you instant cast Wild Growth, and Forest Guardian, which gives you further healing on healing over time effects, and it extends your HOTS whenever you are doing you are pressing other abilities that are outside of your normal rotation. So either Wrath, Starfire, Cyclone, or Swipe in cat form, or Shred in cat form. There is one exception that is important that I mention, which is the Disentanglement PvP talent. With the rework of Efflorescence that we talked about in the Spec talent tree section, Efflorescence is now a passive effect that applies every 4 to 5 seconds under the target of your Life Bloom. This is a key thing to mention, because whenever you play with double melee in your team, such as Warrior plus Death Knight, Red Paladin Warrior, Turbo, so Enhancements Warrior, and any other melee cleave, you might find great benefit from Disentanglement, this expansion. You don't care about the mana cost, but the fact that you can remove slows from friendly targets passively is insane. Especially for warriors, which are really strong right now, but for any melee, having a passive freedom is insane. We will probably drop Forest Guardian out of the other two. I can't express with words how powerful it is to have an S clone. And Early Spring, this season has even more value because of the tier set that we will be using quite often. And as I've explained in the talent section of the spec tree, we are summoning trends with wild growth. So in this section of the guide, we talk about how to maximize healing throughput on Restoration Druid. The main mechanic that you need to know is Mastery. Mastery is giving us extra healing depending on how many hots are present on a target. As we said in the talent section, Life Bloom counts as 3, so it should almost always be your first global on a teammate that is taking heavy damage and for single target healing, followed by rejuves and wild growths. So you want to Life Bloom, then rejuves, and then you want to wild growth. The philosophy is to keep hots up before you do burst healing. Burst healing, this expansion, comes from Swiftment. Swiftment is doing the most amount of healing ever by itself, and then whenever you use the follow-up rejuvenation, you're triggering 3 different effects with follow-up rejuvenation. You're triggering Soul of the Forest, which is giving you 60% healing bonus on rejuve, Power of the Archdruid, which is cleaving this rejuvenation on up to 2 targets, and Apex Talents, which is causing your Life Bloom to go into a full bloom frenzy for 3 times, which is giving you extra burst healing. This is why I'm running Prosperity, by the way, because it's giving me access with Keeper of the Grove to a very strong single target healing source in the form of Swiftment, and it is also giving me access to these procs, which is very strong burst, instant cast burst healing. You might ask, Aurelio, but if this is our burst healing, why bother with wild growth? Can't you just play with Life Bloom and rejuves and then Swiftman them? Well, there are a few reasons why. As mentioned in the spec talent section, Grove Guardians are now a passive summon that you get for each wild growth and Swiftment that you do on the targets. So it is very easy to go up to 4 to 5 trends in a burst window situation, especially with Prosperity. And that is relevant for burst healing, obviously, because you want as many trends up as possible, because they are reducing the cooldown of your main throughput cooldown, which is Incarnation Tree of Life, which is giving you 15% bonus healing baseline. It is giving you instant cast regrowths, and wild growths can spread to more targets, which is relevant for BG Blitz. It is also giving you instant cast roots and instant cast rats, which we will come to that later. You can access this form in 2 ways, either through the normal talent, which is this one, so it's a 3-minute cooldown that gets reduced for every trend that is up through Scenario's Guidance. So every Grove Guardian that you summon from Wild Growth and Swiftment will reduce this cooldown by 5 seconds, including whenever you are in the form. So if you are in the form and you're using your cooldowns and you're summoning trends, all these trends will reduce the cooldown on Incarnation Tree of Life whenever the form expires. I will show you. Notice how many trends that I'm summoning. It's a ridiculous amount of trends that I'm currently summoning. The second way you can access this form is through Reforestation, which is this talent right here. Every 4 casts of Swiftmend, it will give you Tree of Life for another 10 seconds. As you can see, Tree of Life is already 1 minute cooldown. So this is the power of Prosperity build. It will give you access to Tree of Life a lot more often. Running Prosperity increases the difficulty of the class, unfortunately. Its drawback being that it consumes a regrowth, a wild growth, or a rejuve present on a target in this order. So regrowth first, wild growth second, and rejuve third. You need to be careful not to consume a Soul of the Forest empowered rejuve for your Swiftmend, as that is inefficient. The best hot to consume is regrowth, followed up by wild growth. Why do I say this? Well, Regrowth is a bit more healing compared to Wild Growth, single target, but you gain regrowth with much more. It's way easier to get a regrowth in terms of how much mana it costs you. So a regrowth can cost you 0 if you're casting it every once in a while. Wild Growth is quite expensive, it's 9000 mana, and you should use it in your rotation, but whenever you can, you want to be able to use regrowth, especially in Tree of Life, because with clear cast procs, this is free of charge, so you can just consume it and then use the Soul of the Forest on rejuves. This is also why I'm running with Tranquil Mind, so whenever I'm in Tree of Life, I'm getting as many clear cast procs as possible, which I can consume with Swiftmend. And then the Wild Growth is the extra bonus healing that I press when the burst healing is there. So the Wild Growth is something that I press whenever the Life Bloom plus double rejuve is not enough, and I have to press it to keep my teammates alive. And this is especially true whenever I'm not in Tree of Life, and I need it as for the Swiftmend that I need to consume. Basically, all this works together nicely, as you're very often in Tree of Life, so you can use the clear cast procs of Regrowth to use them for Swiftmend. So you you make your Swiftmend take the Regrowth instead of Rejuves. And whenever you are outside of Tree of Life, you use Wild Growth in order to soak for Swiftmend, instead of having to use a Rejuve for Swift. This is especially true whenever you already have an empowered rejuvenation up, and you don't know which of these rejuves you will consume with Swiftmend. You just press Wild Growth, so you are sure that you are consuming Wild Growth instead of the other two HOTS that are way more valuable. Verdant Infusion build is more standard. You can use it and it's easier to play. You can use it if you want to learn Restoration Druid. So with the normal build, you want to put every HOT possible, and then you want to extend all your HOTs with Swiftmend, and then you want to get the Soul of the Forest rolling as usual. This is a more standard version of the build. It's less mana intensive compared to my build, so it's better for long 3v3 games whenever a game can be decided on mana. All you need to know is that by running this type of build with Verdant Infusion, you are funneling all your healing on one target. So you are weak to being swapped to, or swaps in general from one teammate to your other teammate, because you are funneling all your HOTs on one target. I have a bonus healing tip for you. In BG Blades, Early Spring also gives you access to AoE Life Blooms, which is the full bloom effect. Whenever you Wild Growth, your next Wild Growth will apply Life Bloom to all targets, and this only happens when you heal 6 allies with Wild Growth. This is 4 BG Bleeds basically, and this is insane for healing, as all those Life Blooms benefit fully from your talents. So 3 times the value of Mastery, and the Apex bonus is also spreading. And to thank you for watching this far, I'll let you in a little secret. What players haven't figured out yet is that you can fulfill this requirement in Arena 2 with summons and pets as well. This means that if you play with a Beast Mastery Hunter, an Unholy Death Knight, a Demonology Warlock, you can consistently get an area of effect, Life Bloom effect in Arena, in 3v3 Arena. This also further enhances your single target burst healing, because the Everbloom rank 3 is giving you Blooming Frenzy, Well, this is an area of effect. So, if you have multiple life blooms present, you are effectively doing this effect multiple times. So your single target burst healing and your area of effect burst healing, when you have all those life blooms active, is magnified. Do keep in mind that in your raid frames here, the game does not recognize those life blooms, so you will not see them in your raid frames. You have to look at them with the target frame right here. Just make sure that you are aware of what's going on, so you don't waste globals reapplying life blooms when they are already there. The main purpose of this section, the damage rotation part, is to maximize Forest Guardian uptime and value with Master Shapeshifter value, while also contributing to meaningful damage for kills. For damage you have two cooldowns. Call of the Elder Druid, which is a passive effect that you trigger with abilities, with specific abilities, and Heart of the Wild. Heart of the Wild should always be used on Feral Frenzy for damage, and the only alternative use of Heart of the Wild is to get extra tankiness in bear form. But for damage purposes, it's always on the cat form version. I would say that if you want to maximize your damage during combat, you want, because in the opener you want to always prioritize healing. So in a normal scenario, you should always trigger your Call of the Elder Druid with Star Surge. So you have it up, then you want to go in, Feral Frenzy, Maim Stun, and then you can do all sorts of things. So you can go again for damage, and then you want to go back and Star Surge, and then go back to healing. This is the most amount of damage you can do outside of Tree of Life. Now, with this type of damage, you are contributing, you're basically doing some damage, and the burst is coming in mainly through Feral Frenzy and Star Surge. But the most amount of damage you can do is actually in Tree of Life. Tree of Life grants you access to Wrath, instant cast, so you can actually spam your damage, which is significant damage that is coming in. Keep in mind that with your normal rotation, your trance will spread the Moonfire for you, so you're actually gaining quite a bit of damage like this. With Call of the Elder Druid, you're also gaining the fast global cooldown on Wrath, so you're doing a lot of damage like this. As you can see, if you don't have to heal, you can go up to 40k DPS, which is insane for a Restoration Druid. You're also gaining mana back while you're doing all of this. Obviously, in a realistic scenario, you cannot spend your entire Tree of Life window doing damage, but in deep dampening, if you are close to a kill, you can actually contribute a lot of damage in a burst window by assisting your team with Star Surge, and either you go in, you Feral Frenzy, and you Maim Stun, and you do another Star Surge, like this, and then you can go back and then you do some extra damage with Star Surge. And if you align both Call of the Elder Druid with your Incarnation Tree of Life, you can do a lot of damage with the setup. You gain the most value from this combo if you have full HOTS because of Forest Guardian. Because if you have HOTS rolling on yourself while you spam Wrath in Tree of Life, the HOTS are not expiring because of Forest Guardian, as you can see. So that's something you can do to assist your team with damage. Now obviously, as I said, burst healing comes from actually using your healing spells, especially with Swiftwind and Wild Growth. So the healing that you're doing is not that great whenever you only have HOTS rolling. And so realistically you will do 1-star Surge with a couple rats and then you go back to healing. That's the realistic scenario whenever you are trying to assist your team with damage. So in this section we will talk about how to use your cooldowns appropriately. The first thing that you should be using when the gates open and when the enemy team is popping offensive cooldowns is to go in Tree of Life, so that you're getting the bonus healing from full, so you can answer properly to the burst cooldowns that are coming in. Usually when you get CC'd in Tree of Life, the first thing that your teammates will do is pop their defensives, so you can sit and greed your trinket, so you don't have to trinket the first go. And in the second go, if they are going after your teammates, if they don't have big defensives left, you want to Ironbark, so they are completely fine when the second set of offensive cooldowns are present from the enemy. If you are getting trained, instead what you should be looking to do is to press Barkskin first whenever the enemy is stunning you and popping offensive cooldowns on you. If the enemy team is not stunning you, then you should try for opportunities to run away with your movement cooldowns and your wild charge away from danger. This both with dash and stampeding roar paired with wild charge. If they are stunning you and you are in leg sweep, in a kidney shot, you want to skin the offensive burst from the enemy when they have popped Serenity, or they have popped Wings or Avatar. You want to press the Barkskin to respect the damage that is coming in. If the enemy team is trying to kill you, so it's not one occasional swap, but they are trying to kill you first as the main target. On the second set of cooldowns, if you don't have Barkskin, you should look for opportunities to Ironbark yourself before the stun comes in. If that is not possible, you want to Trinket Ironbark yourself on the second set of cooldowns of the enemy. Keep in mind that you also have a Frenzied Regen that is casting automatically when you fall below 40% HP every 2 minutes. This is very useful if you have healing over time effects on yourself, because the healing done from Frenzied Regen scales from Mastery. So let me show you an example. So if I have no HOTS present, my Frenzied Regen is sticking for 80,000. If I have a lot of HOTS, my Frenzied Regen is sticking for 192,000, as you can see in the combat log. So it is effectively more than doubling the healing that I'm getting from Frenzied Regen. This counts for well-honed instincts as well. So if somehow you are insane at the game and you get pre-HOTS on yourself before they do a full swap on you, so Life Bloom and Rejuves, you can potentially greed your trinket if you have well-honed instincts present, because your well-honed instincts will do a lot of healing when you have HOTS present on yourself. Otherwise, Frenzied Regen alone probably will not be enough, so you will have to trinket as well. Once again, you want to look for opportunities to move away from danger, especially utilizing pillars and the power shifting technique whenever you are not in a stun. So you make it hard to the enemy team to swap to you, and whenever they swap off you, you want to go back into the fight in terms of line of sight, so you know when, so you are in range of your teammates, and put HOTS back up on your team. Because the weakest part of Restoration Druid is not having HOTS on your team. because you need at least 3 globals before you do any significant healing. So if they are swapping off you, you know that you're a potential target for CC. So a polymorph, blind, blinding light, stormbolt, fear from warrior, silence, trap. So if you can pre-hot your team before you do, before they CC you again, it's a lot of value. Especially if you are in stun DR, because whenever the go is over, you're out of stun DR and you can heal yourself back up. Then the enemy team usually looks for opportunities to go back to your teammates. Ulsor's Vortex is also a great tool to kite the enemy team, or an offensive tool to not let the enemy team escape one of your teammates set up. You just want to use it accordingly depending on the situation. You just need to know that it's a powerful tool that helps you kite the enemy and peel yourself from the enemy, because they will be stuck in the vortex and you can run behind the pillars, and then it's very hard for the enemy team to connect to you again. So in this section we will talk about how and when to Cyclone. First of all, with Call of Onara we will be having access to NS Clone every once in a while. You want to use NS Clone ideally out of other CC from your team, or to slow the game down defensively whenever one of the enemy DPS is popping offensive cooldowns. It depends entirely on the comp you're running and the situation. I'll give you 2 examples. If you are playing with a rat and a hunter, you are playing Cupid, your cyclones are essential to do setups, so you will look for opportunities to guarantee the cyclone out of the trap, so the enemy healer is locked down for a long period of time. So one clear example is if the red paladin hodges the healer, the hunter traps the healer, and then you want to guarantee the cyclone on the healer next. So you NS clone out of the trap, so the enemy team cannot stop you. If you're playing a different comp that does not rely on your CC on the healer as much as Red Hunter or Rogue Mage, for example, because the Rogue Mage as well can kidney shot, polymorph, but they don't have fear DR, so you're gaining a full cyclone on the healer. So if you're not playing that type of setup comps, you want to look for opportunities to use Nature Swiftness clone on the burst cooldowns of the enemy. So if an enhancement shaman is popping Doomwind's Ascendance, if you're trying to cyclone with the cast, they have a lot of ways to stop you. But if you NS clone, they will not see it coming, so you are negating a lot of their burst potential in the Doomwind's window. In the same way, you can effectively stop a Rogue Mage setup by NS cloning the Rogue. So, for example, if it's a sub-Rogue and they use the Shadow Dance, you can NS clone the Shadow Dance and your team is completely fine, because Rogue Mage cannot do setups without stuns. So by NS cloning the Shadow Dance, you are negating the full go. So basically, NS clone is something that you should be using, generally speaking, for defensive purposes, unless you know what you're doing in 3v3 and you're very coordinated with your team and you are assigning your NS clone to further increases the CC duration on the enemy healer. In the same way, you can use NS clone offensively. If the enemy team has popped a major defensive cooldown, such as pain suppression, dispersion, parry, bop, you name it, and the enemy team is low, you can NS clone to prevent healing on them. So in terms of normal casting of cyclones, so not with NS, the philosophy is the same as last expansion and in my previous guides. you want to look for opportunities to Cyclone, but not in the opener, because in the opener you know for a fact that the enemy team has offensive cooldowns up. So you don't want to risk being kicked when the enemy team can pop offensive cooldowns and burst your team, because out of the interrupt they can CC you, and there's nothing you can do at that point except trinketing, and that is a disaster opener if you are forced to press trinket whenever your team is also using defensive cooldowns. That is especially true for Shuffle, because in 3v3 theoretically you could call out to your teammate that it's your trinket, so they might save their own defensive cooldowns, but generally speaking you want to avoid this risk entirely. And after the first set of cooldowns of the enemy, you want to look for opportunities to Cyclone. I would say that if you're learning Restoration Druid, you should limit yourself to NS cloning and do the healing part. Cycloning is something that comes with experience later on, when you know for a fact that you are risking very little from going for a Cyclone. One clear example is if I know that the go is just over right now, so my teammate is completely safe, then I try to go for clones on healer to set up a setup go myself with no cooldowns, so I try to go for a Cyclone with a cast. So in terms of mana efficiency, you just have to realize that Restoration Druid have a lot of mana consumption this season, and the main culprit is Wild Growth, because Wild Growth is the most expensive hot that we will be using on a regular basis, and this basically means that after 4 to 5 minutes in 3v3 with proper use of our cooldowns, we'll go out of mana, and that is also why we have to play Master Shapeshifter in 3v3 with Innervate, so that we can regain as much mana as possible through Star Surging and through full combo point maim stun. These are the main tools that you have to regenerate mana in combat, but these tools have been nerfed compared to last season, percentage wise of mana that you regain from them. So we are back to trying to drinking in Go Prowl, so you drink in stealth, as a main source of regenerating mana this season. So you just need to know that if the enemy team is trying to dampen you, you just have to be able to look for opportunities to fully hot your teammate, go behind a pillar, and drink in stealth. If you're a Night Elf, you can also do this more efficiently. So you're in combat, you're trying to heal your teammates, you go for full hots, then you go behind a pillar, meld, meld, drink, and go prowl. If you know for a fact that the game will be decided on mana, and you know that the enemy team is trying to do that, you could play with Verdant Infusion, as I said, so you limit the amount of mana that you're using in your rotation. But you're still using Wild Growth as a tool for bursting. It's just that you are not consuming hots with Mold Swiftman, so you will naturally use just slightly less mana compared to my build, even though you're sacrificing a lot of throughput potential. Your healing spells have a different mana cost attached to them. Let's go over them real quickly. Your Life Bloom costs 4000 mana, which is the most efficient hot that you have, because it is also giving you clear cast procs. Regrowth without clear cast is 7000 mana. Rejuvenation costs 5.2 thousand mana, and in Tree of Life this is reduced, and it's 3.675. Then you have Wild Growth, which in PvP combat is 9000 mana, as the tier set is halved. the tier set buff, the bonus, is halved in PvP combat, so the effective cost in rated arena is 9000 mana. This is why you want to use Wild Growth only when the burst damage is coming in. Otherwise, you want to limit yourself to pressing Life Bloom plus Rejuves, with the occasional regrowth, with clear cast procs, and Swift Mend. Innervate is a strong feature, and you should try to use it on your first Tree of Life window, and then on cooldown as much as possible. Keep in mind that whenever you are Star Surging with Master Shapeshifter, you are getting mana back, and the same can be said if you go in and you Feral Frenzy, main stun. The main stun is giving you 20,000 mana back, so it's a lot of mana. No, it's 12,000 mana. So this is all to say that it is quite a lot of mana back that you're gaining from your normal abilities that are not healing spells. This is also why this all synergizes well with Forest Guardian, because you are gaining this full benefit, and then if you can go for it for full combo point finishers, you are also gaining some mana back. This is nerfed this season, this expansion compared to last expansion, but it's still a good way to regenerate some mana in combat. So positioning is key on Restoration Druid. You want to stay spread from your team, so you don't make it easy to the enemy team to do swaps on you. Ideally, you want to stay in a triangle formation, especially with casters, like this, while you stay here, so that it is easy for you to avoid swaps, and you force the enemy team to use movement cooldowns to do swaps, such as Charge, Shadow Step, Heroic Leap, Blink, Divine Steed, or Death Grip from Death Knight. With all these tools being used, then they will make it hard for them to go back to your teammate with other movement cooldowns, in which case your teammate will be able to easily kite them, because they've already used such cooldowns to get to me or to get to him. So this is why this formation is very powerful. You cannot maintain this formation forever, and it is especially hard to do this with melee cleaves. Realistically, you will see them being together, trying to kill one of your opponents. You just need to keep in mind to not stay close to them, and try to keep a safe 20 to 25 yards distance, which is also great because with this distance you can try to wait for clones on the enemy team. The only scenario in which you want to jump into the action is if you want to go for a Feral Frenzy maim stun. So if you have enough combo points, one way or another, it is safe to go in for a maim stun, because with that you will be able to contribute with pressure to a kill, or to force defensive cooldowns from the enemy team. Other than that, you want to maintain a safe distance, so that you can appropriately kite the enemy team after they already committed a charge, a shadow step on you, just to get to you. Then you want to use the movement cooldowns that you have in order to get out of danger through power shifting technique, wild charge, and so on. So this expansion, with the introduction of an Cyclone, you have a lot of options to play with different setups and comps for 3v3. You can play with Rogue Mage, with an Assassination Rogue version of the comp. You can play with a Hunter team, so it would be either with a Retri Paladin, so Cupid, which is a Retri Paladin Hunter. You can play with the Death Knight plus a Hunter, which would be Beast Mastery Unholy Death Knight comp. And you can play with Rogue Hunter with Marksmanship and an Outlaw or a Sub-Rogue. All those comps are really good and they focus on winning with setups. So you never worry about going in those comps, you just try to win with setups, with CC, before you run out of gas, which is your mana. You could even play with a melee cleave, such as Turbo Cleave, which is right now a very strong throughput based comp, which aims to overwhelm the opponents with raw damage and pressure. You are especially good with this setup because you can NS clone the healer out of the game for a while, so 5 seconds, and these 5 seconds an enemy can die 2 times, sometimes with the burst that is coming in from enhancement and warrior. So these are the options. You could even play with Red Warrior, although I think that it is an inferior version of the comp, Turbo Cleave. And you could even play with Elemental Warrior. So all in all, I think that you have quite a lot of options this season for 3v3 push, and you just have to pick and choose depending on what your teammates are playing. So if you've watched the full guide, thank you so much for watching the full guide. I would appreciate it if you leave a like and a sub to the channel. It helps me a lot. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I've tried to be as thorough as possible, but if I've missed something, feel free to ask. I will get back to you ASAP. No matter what your goal is this season, I wish you all the best of luck. Stay tuned for more Restoration Druid content on the channel and for more guides in the future. Have a nice day and good luck.